The Concordat ships appeared suddenly in Earth's sky, their shiny surfaces catching the sun's light as they moved into orbit. Admiral Tazsung looked at the blue-green planet below with cold eyes. "These humans have nuclear weapons and basic space travel," he told his assistant, "but they are still far behind us." Lieutenant Ji Woo checked her screens. "Should we use our usual plan? Show them how strong we are, then make them give up?" "Yes, they always do." Tazsung had done this 17 times before. He never needed to start a real war. Just showing their weapons was enough to make planets surrender. Meanwhile on Earth, Colonel Hannah Park got the alert at the Defense Force base deep under Seoul. She kept her face calm as she watched the alien ships on the screen. "They are trying to scare us, not attack yet," she said, "just as we thought they would." General Daeho looked at her. "You will talk to them, Colonel. Remember to slow things down." Later that day, Colonel Park stood in a cold, empty room on the alien ship. Admiral Tazsung sat across from her, his strange eyes studying her carefully. "So that's what you want," Park said after hearing the alien's speech. "Our leaders need 3 days to think about your offer." Tazsung's face moved in what might have been a smile. "Take your time. But remember, if you don't join us peacefully, things will get very bad for your people." As Park left the ship, she touched a hidden device under her uniform. Step 1 is done. They don't suspect anything. Back on their ship, the aliens waited. They believed humans would be like all the other species they had found, scared, divided, and quick to give up. They were wrong. For years, Earth had been listening to alien signals. They knew the Concordat was coming. Instead of fighting each other, humans had joined together. They built secret weapons designed to work against alien technology. They hid ships on the far side of the moon. They placed invisible defense systems in orbit. Colonel Park wasn't really there to negotiate. She was there to learn the aliens' weaknesses and buy time. In the main Earth defense room, technicians watched as the alien ships moved into position. "Their shields are strongest at the front, but weaker at the engine areas," said one. "Their weapons take 12 seconds to charge," noted another. General Daeho studied a large map showing hidden Earth forces. "Are all units ready?" "Yes, sir. Waiting for the signal." On the alien ship, Admiral Tazsung grew impatient. "These humans are taking too long. Perhaps we should show them what our weapons can do." "A small demonstration?" asked Jiwoo. "Yes. Target that empty island in the Pacific. Just enough power to make a point." The beam from the alien ship lit up the sky as it hit the uninhabited island, turning sand to glass. Tazsung sent a message to Earth's leaders. "This is but a fraction of our power. You have 24 hours to accept our terms." Colonel Park was called back to the alien ship. This time, Tazsung didn't offer her a seat. "Have your leaders made the wise choice?" he asked. Park smiled. "They have made a choice." She pressed a hidden button on her wrist. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the alien vessel. "What is happening?" Tazsung demanded as his screen showed dozens of Earth ships appearing from behind the moon. "We've been studying you for years," Park said calmly. "We decoded your transmissions. We learned your technology. And we prepared." All around Earth, hidden defense platforms activated. They fired specialized weapons that disrupted the alien shields. Small, fast Earth ships targeted the weak points of the Concordat vessels. "Impossible," shouted Jiwoo as their systems started failing. The aliens had never faced real resistance before. They didn't know how to react. Their formation fell apart as Earth forces struck from all directions. "You made one big mistake," Park told the shocked admiral. "You thought we would be afraid. You thought we would give up our freedom to save our lives." She leaned closer. "But humans would rather die fighting than live on their knees." As Park was escorted off the ship by her hidden team of soldiers, the admiral watched his mighty fleet being disabled by the supposedly primitive humans. For the first time in the long history of the Concordat, a species hadn't surrendered. Instead, the humans had been waiting for them, ready and united. The negotiation table would look very different next time. 10 years before the alien ships arrived, Dr. Sungmin sat alone in the quiet Daejeon Observatory, monitoring deep space signals. It was just past midnight when his computer picked up something strange. "This can't be right," he whispered, checking the pattern again. The signal was clearly artificial, but it wasn't from Earth or any known human satellite. 3 days later, he showed his findings to a small group of scientists and government officials. "This is a communication between ships," he explained, "not human ships. The language patterns are unlike anything we've seen before." Instead of public panic, world leaders made a surprising choice. Keep this discovery secret and prepare. Within months, a hidden global alliance formed. The message was clear: we are not alone, and we may need to defend ourselves. Years passed. Underground facilities appeared in remote areas. New satellites launched with secret purposes. Military forces trained for scenarios never before imagined. All while the public went about their normal lives, unaware of what was coming. When the Concordat ships finally appeared in Earth's orbit, humanity had been preparing for almost a decade. Now, as Colonel Hannah Park walked through the massive underground command center beneath Seoul, she felt a strange calm. They had known this day would come. "Status report," she called out as she entered the main control room. Major Kehoe looked up from his station. "They'd given us 72 hours to consider their offer." "Perfect timing." Park nodded. "Show me our readiness." A large screen lit up showing Earth and the space around it. Hundreds of small dots appeared, representing hidden defense systems. "Defense satellites?" she asked. "All in position," replied Kehoe. "We've used the technology from Dr. Sungmin's team. The aliens can't see them. Fleet status: hidden in lunar orbit, ready to move when you give the word." Park studied the display, then asked, "And Project Mirror?" Kehoe smiled. "Dr. Minji called an hour ago. All systems are operational." Project Mirror was their ace, a system designed to capture, analyze, and redirect the aliens' own weapons energy. It had taken 5 years to develop, based on the intercepted alien communications. Meanwhile, aboard the Concordat flagship, Admiral Taesung paced impatiently. His long experience conquering developing worlds told him something was off. "Lieutenant Jiwoo, what is the usual response time for species at this development stage?" he asked. "Typically 12 to 24 hours, Admiral," she replied. "They deliberate, panic, sometimes make small shows of resistance, then surrender." Taesung clicked his mandibles in annoyance. "These humans are taking too long. Perhaps they need a reminder of what they face." He walked to the command center and pointed at a small island on the display. "Target this uninhabited location. Minimal power, just enough to make our point." "Yes, Admiral," the weapons officer responded. The energy beam cut through Earth's atmosphere, striking the empty island with surgical precision. Water boiled, sand turned to glass, and a message was clear: resist, and this could be your cities. In the underground command center, Colonel Park watched the demonstration with interest. The room was silent as everyone studied the data flowing in from sensors specifically designed to analyze the alien weapon. "They've shown their hand," Park said, a small smile forming on her lips. "Now we know exactly how their main weapons work." She turned to communications. "Send our response. Tell them we're ready to discuss surrender terms." Major Kehoe looked at her with surprise. "Surrender? But we're ready to." "Not actual surrender," Park clarified. "We need their ships in position. When I go up there tomorrow, Project Mirror will need clear targets. Across Earth, in hidden bunkers and mountain facilities, final preparations began. Weapons systems powered up. Defense grids came online. Military units moved to strategic positions. In orbit, human satellites quietly adjusted their positions, still invisible to alien sensors. On the moon's far side, pilots climbed into their ships, running final checks on systems specifically designed to counter Concordat technology. Dr. Minji watched her screens in the Project Mirror control room. Energy absorption systems at full capacity, she reported. We can take their first strike and send it right back at them. Admiral Ta Sung received the human message with satisfaction. See, Jiwoo. Just like all the others. A small demonstration, and they come to their senses. Shall I prepare the integration protocols? She asked. Yes, he said, not noticing the unusual readings coming from Earth. By tomorrow, this will be just another successful expansion of the Concordat. Little did he know that humans had spent a decade preparing for this moment. They weren't surrendering. They were setting a trap. Admiral Ta Sung stood tall on the command deck of his ship, satisfaction evident in his posture. The message from Earth had arrived exactly as expected. The humans were ready to discuss surrender terms. They've come to their senses, he told the officers gathered around him. Prepare the integration protocols. This will be another successful addition to the Concordat. Lieutenant Jiwoo nodded. I'll prepare the ceremony hall. Standard procedure. Yes, Taesung replied. Let them feel some dignity in their surrender. It makes the transition smoother. The Grand Council chamber aboard the flagship was designed to impress. High ceilings, strange glowing pillars, and a circular table that subtly placed the aliens in positions of power. The Concordat had refined this approach over centuries. The room itself was a tool of intimidation. When Colonel Park and her small delegation arrived, they were escorted with formal courtesy. The 5 humans wore simple blue uniforms with Earth's new united emblem, a globe surrounded by stars. Taesung noticed Park carried a folder with papers. Primitive, but expected. Less developed species often clung to physical documents for important occasions. The Concordat representatives took their seats, their mandibles clicking softly in what humans would later learn was their expression of approval. Colonel Park, we are pleased you have chosen the path of wisdom. Taesung began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into human language. You've made the rational choice. Integration will proceed smoothly if... Park did something unprecedented. She interrupted him. Actually, Admiral, she said calmly, we've decided against integration. The room fell silent. No species had ever rejected the Concordat's final offer. It simply wasn't done. Perhaps there is a translation error, Taesung suggested, his voice hardening. Your world has no choice. You will be integrated or... Park reached into her pocket and pressed a small device. No, Admiral, you misunderstand. We are not here to surrender. We are here to make sure you're in this room when we strike. Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of previously invisible defense platforms simultaneously activated. They had been placed there over years, shielded by technology reverse-engineered from the aliens' own communications. On the Concordat ships, alarms began blaring. The aliens had barely noticed the threat before precision strikes hit their external communication arrays and propulsion systems. In the council chamber, Taesung's wrist device lit up with emergency alerts. What is this? He demanded, mandibles flaring wide in alarm. What have you done? From the dark side of the moon, Earth's hidden fleet emerged. 200 vessels, smaller than the Concordats but built specifically to target the weaknesses humans had identified from years of studying intercepted alien transmissions. This is humanity's actual response, Park explained, her voice still calm despite the chaos erupting around them. We decoded your transmissions years ago. We know exactly how your technology works and how to counter it. On the main screen in the council chamber, Taesung watched in horror as the human ships executed precise, coordinated attacks. They didn't target the obvious weapon systems or command centers. Instead, they hit specific points on each ship's hull where shield coverage was weakest. Stop this at once, he shouted. Your species cannot hope to defeat the Concordat. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We don't need to defeat your entire civilization today, Park replied. Just this fleet. Lieutenant Jiwoo rushed into the chamber. Admiral, we're losing systems across the fleet. They're targeting our shield generators and communication arrays with perfect precision. Impossible, she whispered as reports flooded in. The humans weren't trying to destroy their ships. They were systematically disabling them. On the flagship, systems failed one after another. First external communications, then weapons targeting, followed by shield generators and finally propulsion. How? Ta Sung demanded, turning to Park. Your species is primitive. You've barely left your own planet. We may not have your technology, Park said, but we have something you clearly lack: the ability to adapt and work together when threatened. When we discovered your transmissions 10 years ago, we united instead of fighting each other. Through the windows, they could see the Concordat fleet in disarray. Some ships were drifting, others attempting to regroup, but none were able to mount an effective defense against the smaller, faster Earth vessels. After 3 hours of one-sided battle, the remaining functional Concordat ships activated their emergency jump systems, retreating to safety. They left behind 2 badly damaged vessels that could no longer move. For the first time in their long history of expansion, the Concordat had failed to subjugate a developing world. As Park was escorted from the chamber by her team, she turned to Tai Sung one last time. When you return to your leaders, tell them this: humans do not surrender, and we do not negotiate with those who threaten our freedom. 6 weeks after the first battle, Earth's early warning systems detected a massive energy signature. The real Concordat war fleet had arrived, 30 massive vessels against Earth's smaller force. In the main command center, General Hannah Park stood before a large screen showing the approaching alien armada. She had been promoted after the first victory, now responsible for Earth's entire defense. They'd brought exactly what we expected, she told the room full of military leaders. The Concordat never changes its approach. Their tactics remain predictable. Admiral Junho looked concerned as he studied the numbers. General, we should be realistic. Our resources are limited. We cannot match their firepower directly. We don't need to, Park replied with quiet confidence. We only need to execute Operation Ghost. Operation Ghost was unlike any military strategy in human history. It had been developed specifically to counter the Concordat's rigid, formation-based warfare. As the alien fleet approached Earth orbit, they expected to find human defenses arranged in a traditional pattern, a main line protecting the planet with reserve forces behind. It was how every species they had encountered fought. Instead, Earth's ships scattered in seemingly random directions. There was no line, no formation, no recognizable pattern at all. Aboard the massive Concordat command ship, Supreme Commander Hyun Ki watched in confusion. He had been sent to correct the embarrassing failure of Admiral Tai Sung, bringing the Concordat's most powerful battle fleet. What are they doing? He demanded as the human vessels moved in ways that made no tactical sense. His strategy officer looked equally confused. It appears they're breaking apart their own defense structure. Perhaps they're panicking. Hyun Ki wasn't convinced. Don't underestimate them. Tai Sung made that mistake. He ordered a standard attack formation, sending his ships forward in a perfect arrow shape. But as they advanced, something strange happened. Small groups of human ships would appear, strike at a specific point on a Concordat vessel, then disappear again before the aliens could respond. Target the largest human vessel, Hyun Ki ordered in frustration. We can't find a largest vessel, his weapons officer replied. They all appear to be similar size. There was no flagship to target, no command structure to disrupt. The humans fought like a swarm of insects, small, fast, and seemingly everywhere at once. They're inserting something into our systems, reported his technology officer suddenly, voice rising in alarm. Some kind of self-replicating code. It's spreading between ships through our communication network. Earth had deployed its second secret weapon, adaptive algorithms that infiltrated Concordat systems. These digital infections didn't destroy critical systems immediately. Instead, they caused unpredictable malfunctions, making the aliens doubt their own technology. A weapon system would target the wrong coordinates. Engine power would surge or fall without command. Communications would work perfectly one moment and fail the next. The space around Earth became a chaotic battleground. Human pilots executed maneuvers the Concordat considered impossible, flying directly at enemy weapons, then veering away at the last second, finding blind spots in their targeting systems. This is not warfare, Hyun-ki shouted as reports of failures continued to pour in. There is no honor in this chaos. After 2 days of continuous fighting, 4 Concordat ships had been disabled. By the 3rd day, that number had risen to 11. Meanwhile, Earth's scattered defenses remained at about 60% strength. They cannot win, Hyun-ki insisted to his officers as another cruiser fell silent. It's illogical to resist when defeat is inevitable. We still have more ships, more firepower. But his officers were growing less certain. Never had the Concordat faced an enemy that refused to fight according to the established rules of space warfare. In her command center, General Park received the latest battle reports. Earth was holding, but they couldn't maintain this strategy forever. Resources were dwindling. Pilots were exhausted. She studied the display showing the Concordat command ship, the largest vessel in their fleet, and Hyun-ki's headquarters. Their intelligence suggested that Concordat leadership never expected direct danger to their command ships, which always stayed behind the main battle line. It's time, she announced to her command staff. Prepare for the final phase. Admiral Jun-ho looked shocked. You can't be serious. A direct assault on their command ship. It's suicide. It's unexpected, Park corrected. And that's why it will work. The Concordat doesn't understand humans yet. They don't realize that we're willing to risk everything for freedom. She opened a channel to Earth's remaining forces. All units, this is General Park. Execute Operation Spear. I repeat, execute Operation Spear. Across the chaotic battlefield, human ships began to regroup, forming a tight formation for the first time in the battle. All pointed directly at the Concordat command ship. The small human ship attached itself to the side of the massive Concordat command vessel. Unlike the other human attacks, this one wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to board. Captain Soo-jin checked her team's special suits. They had trained for this mission for months, using what they knew about alien ship layouts from intercepted data. Remember, our goal is to reach the command center without being detected, she told her team of 12 soldiers. No killing unless absolutely necessary. We want to capture their leader, not kill him. They cut through the outer hull using tools designed specifically for Concordat metal alloys. Once inside, they moved quietly through the strange corridors with their curved walls and pulsing lights. This way, Soo-jin whispered, checking her small device that showed a map of the ship. The command center should be 2 levels up. The aliens had never expected an enemy to board their vessel. Their security was focused outward, not inward. The human team encountered only 3 Concordat crew members, who they quickly stunned with special weapons. As they approached the command center, they could hear the aliens inside, their strange clicking language sounding upset and confused. On my signal, Soo-jin said, positioning her team around the main door. She took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Now. They burst into the large circular room. 20 alien crew members turned in shock. At the center stood Supreme Commander Hyun-ki, taller than the others, his golden armor marking his rank. Secure the room, Soo-jin ordered as her team moved with practiced efficiency, stunning any aliens who resisted. This is impossible, Hyun-ki stated, his translator making his clicks and whistles into flat human words. He didn't try to fight or run. He seemed too shocked to move. Commander, the human boarding party is in control of the bridge, reported Soo-jin through her communicator. Area secured. 10 minutes later, the main door opened again. General Park walked in calmly, her uniform crisp, her face showing no fear despite being deep inside the enemy flagship. She walked directly to Hyun-ki, stopping just a few steps away from the much taller alien. The room was silent. "Supreme Commander Hyunki," Park said. "I am General Hana Park of Earth's United Defense Force. You are now our prisoner." Hyunki's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your species defies all logic," he finally said. "Why continue fighting when surrender would preserve your lives? We offer integration, not extinction." "That's where you're wrong," Park replied. "We've studied your integrations. We know what happens to planets that join the Concordat. Your subject species exist as second-class citizens. Their cultures are erased. Their worlds are taken for resources. We would rather die free than live enslaved. But survival is the primary imperative of all sentient life," argued Hyun-Ki, his mandibles moving in confusion. "No," Park corrected firmly. "For humans, freedom is worth dying for. That's something your kind has never understood, and why you'll never defeat us." She gestured to a screen showing the battle outside. In a bold move, Earth's remaining ships had formed a protective ring around the Concordat command vessel. "Your fleet is in disarray," Park explained. "They won't fire on their own command ship. Right now, my ships are transmitting everything happening here to your entire fleet." For the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, the Concordat faced something they couldn't understand, a species that valued freedom more than life itself. Hyun-Ki was silent for a long moment. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "Real negotiations," Park answered, "not surrender talks. Peace between equals." 3 days later, in the same room where they had planned Earth's destruction, the first actual peace talks began. Human representatives sat across from Concordat leaders. The terms were not about Earth's surrender, but about establishing boundaries and respect. "You are unlike any species we have encountered," Hyun-Ki admitted as the talks progressed. "Perhaps there is much we can learn from each other." General Park nodded. "That's the first sensible thing you've said." A week later, the Concordat fleet withdrew from Earth orbit. They left behind 2 small ships as part of a new exchange program, the beginning of actual diplomatic relations. As Hyun-Ki's ship prepared to jump back to Concordat space, he sent one final message to General Park. "We came to teach you your place in the galaxy," the message read. "Instead, you taught us something we had forgotten. True strength is not in domination, but in the courage to stand for principles." Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The small blue-green world had done the impossible. They had faced the mighty Concordat and forced them to negotiate as equals. Other worlds watched with new hope. Perhaps the age of Concordat expansion was ending. Perhaps there was another way. On Earth, people celebrated their victory, but General Park knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through submission, but by showing that some things were worth fighting for. As she watched the stars from her office window, Park smiled. "They thought we would negotiate on their terms," she said quietly. "They were wrong. The end